The Iron Dawn moved silently through the blackness of deep space. It was a large warship, its dark armor marked by years of battle. Every crew member knew the reputation of their fleet. The Deathworld fleet was the only force in the galaxy that had fought every major threat and survived. Many called them dangerous. Others called them impossible to defeat. But to Captain Ryan and his crew, they were simply doing their duty. That day began like many others. The ship was running routine patrols along the outer edge of human territory. The sensors scanned empty space. The crew followed their daily schedules. Some were on watch. Some worked in the engine rooms, and others maintained the weapons. The hum of the engines was steady, a deep sound that told everyone the Iron Dawn was alive and ready. Then the alarm rang. Lieutenant Mara at the sensor station called out in a sharp voice. She reported multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Their signatures were unknown. The bridge crew came alive with activity. Screens lit up with new data. Captain Ryan stood and walked to the center of the bridge. His voice was calm but firm as he ordered a full scan. The results came back quickly. A small convoy of alien ships had appeared. They were not in battle formation. Their shields were weak. Several ships showed heavy damage. Hull breaches were patched with emergency barriers. Their engines flickered as if close to failure. The convoy was moving slowly and broadcasting a wideband signal. Mara decoded the signal. It was a universal distress call. Ryan narrowed his eyes. In this part of space, any unknown contact could be a trap. Yet something about the pattern of movement told him these ships were not hunters. They were running. He gave the order to open a channel. The image appeared on the main display. An alien figure stood in front of a damaged console. The being was tall, with a thin, angular body covered in dark green chitin. Its head had large black eyes and small mandibles that clicked. When it spoke, the alien's voice came through the translator in a clear but tense tone. "This is Kreth, leader of the surviving fleet of the Threxan people. Our homeworld is gone. Our enemy will follow. We request asylum with the human fleet." The bridge fell silent. The Threxans were not an enemy of humanity, but they were not close allies either. Ryan studied the alien's posture. Kreth stood straight despite the obvious strain in his voice. There was no deception in his eyes, only exhaustion and urgency. Ryan asked for details. Kreth explained that their world had been destroyed by a force known only as the Zork. The Threxans had fled with whatever ships they could save. Many had not made it. This convoy was all that remained. The Zork would hunt them until none were left. The request was dangerous. If the Zork came here, the Deathworld fleet could be drawn into another war. But Ryan also knew the code of the fleet. Humanity did not turn away those who could not defend themselves, not when the cost of mercy was worth paying. He ordered the fleet to hold position and bring the convoy into their protection. The Iron Dawn moved forward, flanked by two smaller human frigates. They formed a shield wall around the alien ships and began guiding them toward a safe holding area. In the outer system, the damage to the alien vessels was worse than expected. Entire sections of their ships were dark. Medical teams were sent to assist. Human engineers carried repair kits across docking bridges to help stabilize the ships. The aliens watched in silence as the humans worked quickly, moving with confidence. Even in zero gravity, Kreth was brought aboard the Iron Dawn for a formal meeting. The conference room was plain but secure. Ryan entered with two officers. Kreth stood on the opposite side of the table, his posture stiff. The alien's black eyes followed every movement, studying the humans carefully. "I thank you for answering our call," Kreth said through the translator. "Your people have a reputation. We were told that humans survive anything. That is why we came to you." Ryan nodded slightly. "We survive because we fight for each other. If your people are under our protection, we will not abandon them." Kreth hesitated before speaking again. "The Zork are unlike any enemy we have faced. They do not stop. They do not speak. They race. I cannot promise your survival if you choose to help us." Ryan's expression did not change. "We will deal with them if they come. For now, your people are safe here." There was a quiet pause. For Kreth, it was the first time in many days he had heard such certainty. The humans did not speak in promises they could not keep. They spoke in terms of action, as if danger was only another problem to solve. Over the next hours, the alien refugees began to relax. They saw the humans delivering crates of food and water to their ships. Medics treated their injured without hesitation. Engineers worked alongside alien crews, teaching them how to stabilize their power systems. The Threxans were surprised by the speed and efficiency of their rescuers. Every human seemed to know their role, and no one complained about the work. Some aliens whispered to each other, wondering if the old stories were true. Stories said humanity came from a death world, a planet filled with predators, violent storms, and endless challenges. It was said that this harsh home had made them stronger than any other species. Looking at the way the humans moved, the aliens began to believe the stories. As the day ended, the Iron Dawn remained on high alert. Patrol ships watched the edges of the system. Weapons crews kept their batteries charged. The humans knew that distress calls often drew predators. If the Zork were nearby, they would come soon. Ryan stood on the bridge, watching the alien convoy through the forward window. In the cold silence of space, the damaged ships looked fragile, almost broken. But within them were lives that had chosen to trust humanity with their future. It was a heavy responsibility, one that Ryan would not ignore. For the Threxans, this was only the beginning of their time among humans. For the Deathworld fleet, it was the first step into a fight that could decide the survival of more than one species. The alien convoy drifted in the safety zone of the Iron Dawn and its escort ships. Massive human vessels surrounded the damaged Threxan craft, forming a protective wall. Docking bridges stretched between ships, carrying engineers, medics, and supply crews back and forth. The Threxans had never seen such speed and aid before. Kreth watched the human work teams through the viewing glass of his temporary quarters. On the Iron Dawn, the humans were not large compared to his own people, yet they moved with a confidence that made them seem unshakable. Even in zero gravity, their movements were precise. They carried heavy containers with ease, secured them, and moved to the next task without rest. Soon, a human officer arrived to escort Kreth to a formal meeting. The officer introduced herself as Commander Vale. She spoke with short, clear sentences, and her eyes were always scanning the area. Kreth followed her through the long corridors of the Iron Dawn. The walls were marked with wear from years of service, but every system they passed was maintained and functional. They arrived at a large meeting room. Captain Ryan stood at the far side, his posture steady. Beside him was Lieutenant Mara, her hands resting on a datapad. A round table stood between them, with seats arranged for both human and Threxan representatives. Kreth of the Threxan people, Ryan said, his voice calm but carrying authority. "Welcome to the Iron Dawn. Please, sit." Kreth moved to the seat prepared for him. His kind usually preferred standing, but the humans had considered his comfort by designing a special curved frame. Instead of a flat chair, it was a small gesture, but it showed attention to detail. Ryan began without delay. "We know your homeworld is gone. We need to understand what threat we are facing. Tell us about the Zork." Kreth explained slowly, choosing his words carefully. The Zork were a warlike species unlike any the Threxans had faced. They never opened communication. They never asked for resources or territory. They attacked without warning, burning cities from orbit and leaving nothing alive. The Threxans had tried to fight, but their ships and weapons had been outmatched. The enemy's strategy was simple: strike hard, leave nothing behind, and move to the next target. Mara tapped her datapad as she recorded every detail. Ryan asked focused questions about weapon types, fleet size, and tactics. The humans did not seem surprised by the brutality of the Zork. Kreth realized that these people had already fought enemies that tested the limits of survival. "You believe they will follow you here," Ryan said at last. "They will not stop." Kreth replied, "They will come for us, and when they do, your fleet will be in their path." Ryan's expression did not change. "Then we prepare for them. You and your people will be given safe quarters. Our engineers will assist in repairing. Your ships, your crews will be trained in our defense protocols." Kreth hesitated. You will fight for us, without any promise of return? Ryan leaned forward slightly. We do not leave the helpless to die. It is not our way. But understand this on our ships. Everyone learns to fight. If the Zork arrive, you will stand beside us. There was a quiet tension in the air. Kreth understood the meaning. Safety here would not be free. The Threxans would have to become part of the defense. He respected the logic. A fleet that fought as one could not afford weak links. The meeting ended with a formal exchange of respect between the two leaders. As Kreth left the room, he felt a weight in his chest. These humans were unlike any species he had known. They were not cold, but they were not soft either. They carried a calm certainty that came from surviving things most could not imagine. Back in the docking bay, Threxan crews were already meeting human engineers. The language barrier was overcome with translation devices, but even without words, the intent was clear. Humans worked directly on damaged hull plating, welding new armor in place. Others moved through alien carters with diagnostic tools, checking for faults. One young Threxan engineer named Vren stood watching a human fix a power coupling twice his size. The human, a short woman with broad shoulders, tightened a series of clamps, tested the power output, and nodded in satisfaction. Vren realized she had done in minutes what had taken his own crew hours. During their desperate escape, medical teams moved among the alien ships as well. Human medics worked in pairs, scanning injuries and providing treatments with portable devices. The Threxans were not used to such direct contact with outsiders, but the humans acted without hesitation, as if no species barrier existed. Kreth returned to his own ship later that day. The moment he entered, dozens of eyes turned to him. His crew wanted to know what the humans had said. He told them the truth: they would be protected, but they would also be expected to learn and to fight. Some of his people were uncertain. The Threxans had never been a warrior culture. Their fleets were built for exploration and trade, not war. But Kreth reminded them of the reality they faced. The Zork would come again. Running had not saved them before. Standing with the humans might. That night, the convoy settled into a strange peace. For the first time since leaving their homeworld, the Threxans were not running. They were under the guard of a fleet with a reputation for survival. Yet Kreth could not sleep easily. He knew the Zork would not let this sanctuary stand without a challenge. On the Iron Dawn, Ryan stood on the observation deck with Commander Vale. They watched the alien ships through the transparent wall. "What do you think of them?" Vale asked. "They have spirit," Ryan replied. "They just do not know it yet. We will show them." In the Zork, Ryan's gaze stayed fixed on the stars. "When they come, we will be ready." The stars outside the window burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them, an enemy fleet might already be on the move. But for now, humanity's Deathworld fleet stood between the refugees and destruction. And for Captain Ryan, that was enough reason to fight. The days after the first meeting passed quickly. The Threxan ships were still under repair, but progress was steady. Human engineers replaced weak hull sections with heavy armor plates. Weapon mounts were added where none had existed before. The once fragile convoy was beginning to look like it could survive more than a single hit in battle. Yet even as the repairs continued, the threat of the Zork hung over the fleet like a shadow. Captain Ryan ordered long-range scouts to sweep the surrounding systems. Patrol ships ran constant scans for any sign of approaching warships. Every officer on the Iron Dawn knew it was only a matter of time before the enemy found them. Kreth felt the same unease. On his ship, the Threxan Dawnlight, he watched the star maps update each day. The human scanning systems were far more advanced than anything his people had used. The range and clarity of the sensor data were impressive. Still, no matter how advanced the sensors, the blackness of space could hide many dangers. One morning, while Kreth was overseeing the delivery of new supplies from a human freighter, Commander Vale arrived with a sealed data slate. She requested to speak with him privately. They moved to a quiet observation room on the Iron Dawn. Vale set the slate on the table and activated the display. The screen showed a series of star systems, each marked with red symbols. The route of destruction was clear. Entire planets had gone silent, one after another. in a straight path toward their current position. The red markers represented worlds the Zork had attacked in the last month. "They are coming," Vale said. Simply.kreth studied the display. The path of devastation was too precise to be random. The Zork were advancing in a steady line, ignoring other targets. Focused only on the fleeing Threxans. It was a hunt. "How long before they reach us?" Kreth asked. 2 weeks if they maintain current speed, Vale replied. "Less if they push harder." Kreth's mandibles clicked in frustration. "That is not enough time to prepare my people for battle. It will have to be," Vale said. Her tone was not unkind, but there was no softness in her words. "We cannot run forever. The captain believes that facing them here, on our terms, is the best chance for survival." The news spread quickly through both human and Threxan crews. Some Threxans reacted with fear, others with determination. The humans, however, treated the information like an accepted fact. For them, danger was a constant companion. They did not waste time worrying about it. They prepared. Training sessions began in earnest. On the wide hangar deck of the Iron Dawn, human Marines drilled Threxan volunteers. They taught them how to hold a blaster rifle, how to fire and control bursts, and how to take cover behind armor plating. The first few days were rough. Threxans were not used to the weight of human weapons or the physical demands of combat maneuvers. Many collapsed in exhaustion during the exercises. But the Marines did not allow anyone to give up. They encouraged, corrected, and pushed the Threxans to try again. By the end of the week, the alien volunteers could at least move in formation and respond to basic combat commands. Kreth trained alongside them, refusing to stand apart from his people, while the soldiers prepared for close battle. The engineers worked to arm the Threxan ships. Small human-made turrets were installed along the hulls. Shield generators were reinforced. Ammunition stores were loaded into newly built compartments. The Threxans, unused to such upgrades, began to walk their carters with a new sense of purpose. One evening, Ryan met with Kreth in the command lounge. They stood near a large tactical display showing the fleet's formation. "You have made progress," Ryan said. "We have learned much from your people," Kreth admitted. "But your weapons and tactics are beyond what we have ever known." "I fear it will not be enough." Ryan's voice stayed steady. "Battles are rarely won by numbers or weapons alone. They are won by those who refuse to break." Kreth considered this. The humans' confidence was unsettling, but it was also strangely reassuring. They did not speak of hope, they spoke of certainty. The following day, long-range scouts returned with partial sensor readings. The Zork fleet had been sighted at extreme distance. Their warships were massive and heavily armed. The lead vessels were built like floating fortresses, with jagged armor designed to deflect direct hits. Smaller escort ships swarmed around them in tight patterns. The sight of the enemy ships brought a quiet tension to the fleet. Every crew member knew that within days, those ships would be upon them. Ryan gathered his officers and Kreth in the strategy room. The holographic table lit up with a model of the system they were in. Asteroid belts stretched across parts of the map. The gas giants orbited near the outer edges. Ryan pointed to the asteroid belt, closest to their current position. "This will be our battleground," he said. "We will hide our heavier ships among the rocks and force the Zork to break formation. As they approach, once they are spread out, we strike hard at their lead vessels." Mara added, "Their smaller ships will try to swarm us. That is where the Threxan ships will hold the line. You have lighter craft, faster than our heavy destroyers. Use that speed to disrupt their flanking maneuvers." Kreth studied the plan. It was dangerous, but it was clear the humans had chosen it to play to the strengths of both fleets. There was no guarantee of victory, yet there was no hesitation in Ryan's voice. When the meeting ended, preparations accelerated. Weapons crews ran drills at all hours. Engineers triple-checked shield generators. Pilots practiced high-speed maneuvers through asteroid fields. Even the Threxan civilian ships were fitted with basic defense systems, in case they had to fight for survival. 2 days before the expected arrival, the fleet entered its final readiness stage. The humans ran one last full combat simulation. Kreth's ship took its place in formation, and his crew responded to commands with growing confidence. They were not the same desperate refugees who had arrived days earlier. They were something more. That night, Kreth stood at the forward window of the Threxan Dawnlight. The stars shone bright and cold, but his gaze was fixed on the darkness beyond them. Somewhere out there, the Zork fleet was closing in. He did not know if his people would survive the coming battle, but he knew one thing for certain: if they were to fall, they would fall standing beside the humans. On the Iron Dawn, Ryan received the final scout report. The Zork would be in the system within 48 hours. He closed the report, walked to the bridge window, and looked out at the distant stars. The shadow was almost here. The coming battle was no longer an idea in the distance. It was a fixed point in time, drawing closer with every hour. The Zork were moving through space at full speed, and the Deathworld fleet had less than 2 days to prepare for the Threxans. That meant learning skills they had never imagined needing. On the Iron Dawn, the main hangar had been turned into a combat training ground. Rows of portable barriers and target drones filled the space. Human Marines stood ready to teach. Their armor was marked with scuffs and burn marks, a clear sign that they had seen real battle. The Threxans gathered nervously at the edge of the deck. Sergeant Kale, a tall Marine with a steady voice, stepped forward. "Your weapons are in the racks behind you. Pick one and line up. Today, you learn how to survive." The Threxans hesitated. Their own ships had energy rifles, but they were designed for shipboard defense, not heavy combat. The human weapons were heavier, with adjustable settings for power and range. Kreth moved first, selecting a standard human blaster rifle. He felt its weight and balance, then signaled for his crew to follow his example. The first exercise was simple target practice. Drones floated at different distances, their surfaces glowing with a faint blue light. The Marines demonstrated how to aim, fire in short bursts, and control recoil. Many Threxans missed their first shots, their claws not yet used to the grip. The Marines corrected their stances, repositioned their hands, and guided them until the shots began to strike true. After the basics came movement drills. The Threxans learned how to advance in pairs, covering each other as they moved. They learned to duck behind barriers and switch positions quickly. It was exhausting work. The human instructors did not slow down, but they did not abandon anyone who struggled. They repeated each step until it became natural. Kreth watched his people change. At the start, they had been hesitant, almost timid with the weapons. By the end of the first day, they moved with more confidence. Their eyes followed the instructors closely, their bodies adjusting to the rhythm of combat training. Meanwhile, human engineers worked aboard the Threxan ships. They installed targeting systems linked to the main fleet network. This meant that when battle came, every ship could share targeting data instantly. A hostile vessel in range of one ship would be marked for all. The engineers also reinforced key sections of the Threxan hulls with dense armor plating, designed to absorb heavy impacts. Vren, the young Threxan engineer, shadowed a human named Harris as he worked on the Dawnlight shield array. Harris explained how to reroute power during battle to keep the shields up under heavy fire. Vren listened carefully, taking notes on a portable slate in a fight against the Zork. That knowledge might mean the difference between life and death. By the second day of training, the Marines introduced live fire drills. The hangar deck echoed with the sound of blaster fire as squads of Threxans moved through simulated battle zones. Smoke generators filled the air with a light haze, and drones fired harmless stun rounds to simulate enemy attacks. The Threxans had to return fire, move to safety, and complete objectives under pressure. One squad, led by Kreth himself, cleared their zone faster than expected. Sergeant Kale nodded in approval, but reminded them that battle would not be as controlled as the simulation. The enemy will not wait for you to be ready, he said. You move fast. You move smart, or you do not move at all. Elsewhere, on the Iron Dawn's bridge, Ryan and Mara reviewed the updated tactical maps. The Threxan ships now had basic weapon systems and were integrated into the fleet's battle plan. Mara pointed out that their speed and agility could be critical in disrupting the Zorak's smaller escort craft. Ryan agreed, noting that the Threxans had shown a surprising willingness to adapt quickly. Back in the hangar, the final stage of training began. Mixed teams. Humans and Threxans worked together in combined squads, learning each other's signals and tactics. Language differences mattered less when every movement was sharp and clear. A hand raised meant stop. Two fingers forward meant advance, a closed fist meant hold position. Kreth found himself fighting side by side with Vale during one exercise. She moved with the precision of someone who had drilled these motions thousands of times. When Kreth covered her advance, she gave a quick nod before moving to her next position. It was a small moment, but it carried weight. Trust was forming. The night before the battle, the hangar was quiet. The Threxans returned to their ships. Their muscles sore, but their minds sharper than before. Kreth walked the corridors of the Dawnlight, seeing his crew checking their weapons and inspecting their armor. They were still afraid, but it was no longer the fear of the helpless. It was the focused fear of those who knew the danger and had chosen to face it. In the Iron Dawn strategy room, Ryan addressed his senior officers. The Zork will test us. They will try to break through our line and reach the convoy. We hold them here. We give no ground. His voice was steady, the voice of a leader who had stood in battles like this before. After the briefing, Ryan stood alone at the observation window. The stars outside were silent, but he knew they had movement warships, cutting through the darkness, closing the distance with each passing hour. He thought of the Threxans, their journey from desperate refugees to willing allies in such a short time. He knew they would still face losses, but they would not face them alone. On the Dawnlight, Kreth looked at the stars from his own command deck. He felt the hum of the upgraded systems under his feet, the weight of the human-made weapon at his side. He thought of the training, the hours of drills, the demands of the human instructors. They had pushed his people harder than he thought possible, but it had worked. He turned to his crew. Tomorrow, we fight, not as prey, but as part of the Deathworld fleet. Stand ready. The crew answered with a sharp chorus of clicks, their way of signaling unity. The sound carried through the bridge, strong and steady, across the fleet. Humans and Threxans alike prepared for the same moment in the cold void of space. They had forged a shared purpose. The Zork were coming, and both species would meet them together. The warning came in the early hours of the ship's cycle. The Iron Dawn's long-range scanners picked up the first shapes moving at high speed. Through deep space, the signatures were unmistakable Zork warships. On the bridge, the crew moved into action. Let's shift it to battle red. The calm hum of the ship became a steady pulse of readiness. Captain Ryan stood at the center, his voice firm and clear as he gave orders. Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations. Threxan vessels take defensive positions inside the formation. Across the fleet, alarms sounded. Human and Threxan crews rushed to their posts. The mixed squads who had trained together now found themselves side by side for real. The asteroid belt that Ryan had chosen for the battlefield loomed ahead, its jagged rocks spinning slowly in the darkness. The plan was simple but dangerous. The heavy human ships would hide among the larger asteroids, forcing the Zork to break their formation to pursue. The lighter Threxan vessels would move quickly along the flanks, disrupting smaller enemy craft and drawing fire away from the convoy. As the enemy came into range, the Zork formation became clear. Massive fortress-like ships led the charge, their black hulls absorbing light. Swarms of smaller escort craft surrounded them, darting ahead like a cloud of steel insects. The sight alone was enough to send a chill through any crew. They are locking weapons, reported Lieutenant Mara. Hold until they enter the belt, Ryan ordered. His tone never rose. Even as the enemy drew closer, the Zork did not hesitate. Green lances of energy tore across space, striking the outer edge of the asteroid field. Huge chunks of rock broke apart and drifted away. The human fleet returned fire in controlled bursts, targeting the escorts first. Bright lines of plasma lit the darkness as the battle began in full. Inside his ship, Kreth gripped the armrests of his command chair. The Dawnlight's newly installed human weapons hummed with power, ready to fire. His crew worked with focus, calling out enemy positions and adjusting their shields under incoming fire. They had trained for this moment, But training was never the same as reality. Target the lead escort on our left, Kreth ordered. The Dawnlight's cannons roared, sending a burst of energy into the enemy ship. Its shields flared and collapsed. A follow-up shot tore through its hull, sending it spinning into the void. For a brief second, cheers filled the bridge, but they were quickly silenced as more enemy ships closed in. The asteroid field became a maze of rock and fire. Human destroyers darted from cover, striking at the Zork lead ships before retreating. Behind thick asteroid walls, the enemy tried to force them into open space. But the Deathworld fleet knew the terrain too well. Every move was measured. Every strike had purpose. Still, the Zork pressed hard. One of the human frigates took a direct hit to its engines. It began to drift, smoke venting into space. Without hesitation, a Threxan corvette broke formation to shield the damaged frigate, taking several hits. Meant for the human ship, Kreth saw it happen on his tactical display. That Threxan crew had not been ordered to do it. They had chosen to. On the Iron Dawn, Ryan studied the shifting patterns of enemy movement. The Zork fortress ships were slower than expected, but their firepower was enormous. If they reached the inner formation, they could destroy the convoy. In minutes, Mara signaled the Hammer's Edge and the Stone Veil. Tell them to focus fire on the fortress to our right. We need a breach in their line, Ryan commanded. The two destroyers moved into position, pouring concentrated fire into the massive warship. Its shields flickered, then failed. A final volley from the Iron Dawn struck deep into its hull, setting off a chain of internal explosions. The fortress ship tore apart, debris scattering in all directions. The destruction of the first fortress shifted the battle. The Zork escorts pulled back for a moment, regrouping around their remaining heavy ships. Ryan knew it would not last. They would come again, and harder than before. On the Dawnlight, Kreth's crew was locked in a running fight with 3 enemy escorts. His ship weaved between asteroids, forcing the Zork to split their pursuit. Vren reported that their shields were holding, but power reserves were dropping. Kreth ordered a quick burst from the engines to break free, then turned the ship sharply to give his gunners a clear shot. One enemy ship was destroyed, the other forced to retreat toward their fleet. The radio channels were alive with voices, orders, warnings, and calls for assistance. Human and Threxan crews responded to each other without hesitation. The training had worked. They fought as one. But the Zork were relentless. The second fortress ship began to push through the belt, its heavy cannons blasting asteroids apart to clear a path. If it reached the open space beyond, it could target the refugee ships directly. Captain, the fortress is breaking through, Mara warned. Ryan's eyes narrowed. All ships converge on that target. Now, the asteroid field lit up with fire. Beams of plasma and bursts of kinetic rounds slammed into the fortress from every angle. The massive ship turned slowly, trying to shield its weaker side. But the Deathworld fleet pressed harder. Kreth's Dawnlight joined the attack, its weapons adding to the storm. Finally, a human torpedo struck the fortress's central reactor. The explosion ripped through the ship's core, splitting it in half. The shockwave knocked several nearby escort ships off course. A cheer rose across the comms. But Ryan did not relax. There were still many Zork ships in the fight, and the third fortress, untouched until now, was turning toward the main formation. The battle was far from over. The battle raged on. The asteroid field was filled with smoke, fire, and shards of destroyed ships. Bright streaks of energy cut through the darkness of space, illuminating the chaos. The Zork were relentless, and the Deathworld fleet was being pushed to its limits. Captain Ryan stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The human fleet had already destroyed one fortress ship, and another had been badly damaged, but the third remained strong and dangerous. It moved toward the inner formation, threatening the convoy of refugee ships. Commander Mara. Status report, Ryan demanded. All Threxan and human ships are holding formation, Mara replied. Shields are weakening on some of the lighter vessels, but we are maintaining our positions. The Zork fortress is advancing toward the center. It will reach the convoy in minutes if we do not act now. Ryan clenched his jaw, He knew they could not let the fortress break through. If it did, hundreds of innocent lives would be destroyed. He looked at the tactical display, considering options. Then his eyes rested on Kreth's ship, the Threxen. Corvette had shown skill, speed, and courage throughout the fight. Kreth, Ryan said over the comms. I need a bold move. If you can strike the fortress directly, you may give us the opening we need to destroy it. Kreth hesitated. The fortress was massive, far stronger than any single corvette. A direct attack could destroy his ship instantly. But he understood the stakes. If he did not act, the fleet might fail. He signaled his crew. We move together, Kreth said. Prepare for ramming maneuver. His crew reacted immediately, weapons ready and shields at maximum. The dome lights surged forward, weaving past debris and enemy fire. Energy blasts struck the hull. But the ship held. Kreth's hands moved over the controls with precision. Every crew member knew their task. They fired at weak points, disrupted targeting systems, and focused on the fortress's side armor. The other ships of the fleet followed Ryan's orders. Human destroyers and frigates poured concentrated fire into the enemy, focusing on the exposed areas the dawnlight was opening. The fortress shifted its attention to Kreth's ship, leaving parts of its hull vulnerable. Steady, Kreth whispered. His claws gripped the console as the ship closed the distance, with a final burst of speed. The dawnlight collided with the fortress's armor. The impact rocked both ships. Sparks flew. Energy shields flickered, and a deep rumble passed through. The corvette, the fortress's systems struggled to compensate for the unexpected strike. Fire everything on my mark, Kreth commanded. The crew opened all available turrets and launched concentrated volleys at the weakened sections. Energy beams struck the fortress in rapid succession. Explosions erupted across its hull, and the enemy's weapons faltered. The human fleet seized. The moment, Ryan ordered a coordinated attack. The destroyers targeted the fortress's main reactor, while frigates disabled its weapon arrays. The combined assault pushed the fortress past its limits. Finally, a massive explosion tore through the ship. Pieces of its hull were scattered across the asteroid field, and its escort ships retreated in confusion. Kreth's corvette had taken damage, but it survived. The shields were low, and the hull had several scorched sections. Yet the crew remained focused. Kreth allowed himself a brief moment of relief. His bold decision had given the fleet the advantage it needed. Ryan's voice came over the comms. Excellent work, Kreth. Your courage has changed the battle. Fleet, press the attack. Destroy the remaining enemy ships. The combined forces of humans and Threxens pressed forward. The Zork escorts, now disorganized, were targeted and destroyed one by one. The remaining fortress ship, seeing the fate of its allies, attempted to retreat, but human destroyers intercepted it. With precision fire, they disabled its engines, leaving it drifting helpless in space. Kreth's crew cheered quietly. They had faced overwhelming odds and survived. They had done more than survive, they had contributed to victory. The asteroid field, once a chaotic battleground, now held the remains of the destroyed Zork ships. Smoke and energy debris filled the void, but the human and Threxen fleets were still intact. The refugees' convoy, once vulnerable, was safe within the protective formation of the Deathworld fleet. Ryan walked the bridge, observing the aftermath. He could see the Threxens moving among the human crews, checking equipment and helping with repairs. The aliens had changed. They were no longer just frightened refugees. They were allies, capable of contributing to the survival of the fleet. Kreth returned to the Dawnlight's bridge and addressed his crew. You have done well, he said. You have fought with courage and skill. Today, we have learned that we can survive, not just because of our ships, but because of our unity. The crew responded with their sharp clicks of acknowledgement. The sound was both a sign of respect and of renewed confidence. Kreth smiled, knowing that their people had found a new strength within themselves. Ryan sent a communication to the surviving Zork ships. This is the Deathworld fleet. Retreat and never return. Humanity protects those who cannot protect themselves, and we will fight without mercy to uphold that promise. The message was simple, direct, and firm. The Zork had faced humans before and knew their reputation. Most of the remaining ships disengaged and began to withdraw. Some attempted minor skirmishes, but the combined fleet was too organized and too strong to be challenged further. The victory was not without cost. Several human and Threxan ships had suffered damage, and some crews were injured. Medics worked tirelessly to treat the wounded, and engineers began repairing the ships. Kreth walked among his people, offering words of encouragement. "You have faced an enemy that sought to destroy you," he told them. "You have survived because you chose to stand and fight. This is the first step in building a future where our people will not be hunted." Ryan and his officers watched the Threxans closely. They recognized the transformation that had taken place. These aliens had learned human tactics, embraced human determination, and demonstrated bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. As the fleet regrouped and tended to its wounded, a sense of cautious celebration spread. The Zork threat had been delayed, but not destroyed entirely. The humans and Threxans had learned to fight as one, and that unity had turned the tide of the battle. Kreth returned to his command chair, his eyes fixed on the stars. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but for the first time since their world had fallen, he felt a sense of hope. Humanity had shown them a new way to survive, and together they could face whatever threats lay ahead. The Deathworld fleet had proven once again that courage, unity, and determination were weapons stronger than any technology alone. The alliance between humans and Threxans had been forged in the fire of battle, and it would shape the future of both species. Tomorrow, they would repair, resupply, and prepare for the next challenge. Today, they had won. The stars seemed calm after the battle, yet the silence carried a weight all its own. The asteroid field, once a scene of fire and destruction, now floated with fragments of defeated Zork ships. Human and Threxan crews worked side by side to repair damage, tend to the wounded, and recover what they could from the debris. Captain Ryan moved along the bridge of the Iron Dawn, observing his fleet. The ships were scarred, but intact. The crew worked with focused determination, cleaning, repairing, and recalibrating systems for any potential future threats. Every movement was a reminder of what they had survived and what they had achieved. Together, Kreth stood on the deck of the Threxan Dawnlight, looking out at the convoy. His people had faced death and had not only survived but had fought with courage and skill. The experience had changed them. Where there had once been fear, now there was resolve. He could see it in their posture, the sharpness of their eyes, in the way they moved among the human crews with confidence. Ryan contacted Kreth through the comms. "Kreth, report on your crew and status of the Dawnlight." "The ship is operational, Captain." Kreth replied, "We have some minor hull damage, but the weapons and shields are intact. My crew is recovering, though they are eager to continue training and improve." "Good," Ryan said. "Your people have performed exceptionally. You fought not as refugees, but as part of this fleet. That is the kind of strength we need. Humanity respects those who can stand and defend themselves." Kreth absorbed the praise but did not let it fill him with pride. There was still work to be done. "Captain, we are grateful for your guidance. My people have learned more than I imagined possible in so short a time. We wish to continue serving alongside you, to protect others, and to honor the lives lost on our world." Ryan nodded. "Then you are welcome among us. The Deathworld fleet protects those who cannot defend themselves. You will continue to learn, fight, and grow with us. This is the start of a new alliance." The fleet began to regroup, moving in tighter formation as repairs continued. Humans and Threxan shared supplies, repaired each other's ships, and reinforced weak points. Each act of cooperation strengthened trust and forged bonds between the crews. Kreth walked through the human ships, speaking to officers and engineers. They showed him techniques for faster repairs and shared strategies for fleet defense. He listened carefully, storing every detail for future use. His people began to understand the full scope of what it meant to fight as a unified force. Meanwhile, Ryan addressed the fleet. "Today, we faced an enemy that sought to destroy everything in its path. We stood together, humans and Threxans alike. We survived because we acted as one. Let this be a lesson to all who challenge the Deathworld fleet. Strength is not measured by size or firepower alone. Strength is measured by courage, unity, and the willingness to protect life. The crews responded with a chorus of acknowledgement. Human voices, threats and clicks, and the hum of active ship systems filled the fleet with a sense of pride and determination. For the first time, the Threxans felt that they were more than refugees. They were allies and warriors in their own right. Kreth gathered his senior officers. "We have survived our first battle with the Deathworld fleet," he said. "But our journey does not end here. We will continue to train, to grow stronger, and to be ready for any threat that may come. Humanity has shown us a way to endure, to fight, and to protect. It is now our duty to honor that lesson." Vren, the young engineer, spoke up. "Captain, our people are motivated. They want to contribute more, to take responsibility for defense. They no longer see themselves as helpless." Kreth nodded. "That is the most important change. Strength comes from within, but it is guided by knowledge and discipline. We will continue to build that strength together, across the fleet." Human crews worked quietly, but with purpose. They repaired hulls, calibrated weapons, and prepared supplies for the next patrol. Even in the calm after battle, there was no complacency. The galaxy remained a dangerous place, and the Deathworld fleet could not afford to rest. Commander Vale joined Kreth on the observation deck of the Iron Dawn. She looked out at the Threxan ships, now moving with precision among the human fleet. "They have adapted quickly," she said. "I did not expect such rapid progress in so little time." "They are willing to learn," Kreth replied. "They see the consequences of weakness and the rewards of unity. Your people have shown them what it means to survive in a hostile galaxy." Vale nodded. "You fought well today. Your people did more than survive. They became part of the fleet. That is a rare accomplishment for any species." Kreth allowed himself a small smile. "It is only the beginning. Together, we will be ready for whatever comes next." Ryan called a meeting later that day. Human and Threxan leaders gathered to discuss future strategy. The victory had proven the value of cooperation, but it had also shown the need for continuous preparation. New patrol routes were planned, shared training schedules were established, and combined fleet exercises were scheduled for the weeks ahead. "This alliance is not just for defense," Ryan said. "It is a statement. We will protect the weak, and we will fight for justice in the galaxy. The Threxans have joined us not only as allies, but as partners. Together, we are stronger than any enemy we may face." Kreth listened to the speech and felt the weight of responsibility. His people had lost their homeworld, but they had found something equally valuable: a chance to rebuild, to learn, and to fight alongside a species whose courage inspired them. That evening, the fleet paused for a moment of reflection. Lights from the ships shimmered against the darkness of space. The remains of Zork ships drifted silently nearby, reminders of the battle that had been fought and won. Crews tended to the injured and honored the lost. Human and Threxan alike, Kreth walked among his people. He could see hope in their eyes. Fear had been replaced with determination. They had survived what seemed impossible, and they had discovered that they were stronger than they ever believed. He returned to the Dawnlight's bridge and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but he no longer felt the same fear he had when they first fled their world. Humanity had shown them that survival required courage, unity, and the willingness to fight for others. His people would carry that lesson forward. Ryan contacted Kreth one last time before the fleet moved out of the asteroid field. "Kreth, the future is uncertain. The Zork may return, and new threats will arise. But know this: the Deathworld fleet does not abandon those who fight with us. Together, we will face whatever comes." "We understand, Captain," Kreth replied, "and we will stand with you today. The Threxans are not only survivors, we are allies, we are warriors, and we are part of something greater than ourselves." The fleet moved forward, leaving the asteroid field behind. Human and Threxan ships sailed side by side, forming a new formation of unity and strength. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of danger, but also full of opportunity. For the first time since their world had fallen, the Threxans felt hope. They had been given a second chance, and they would not waste it. They were part of a fleet that represented the best of humanity's courage, resilience, and determination. The Deathworld fleet sailed onward, carrying refugees, warriors, and allies together into a galaxy that had no mercy, yet with courage and unity. They knew they could face any challenge. Humanity had shown them the way, and the Threxans would walk that path with them. The alliance was born in battle, strengthened by trust, and sealed with the shared purpose of survival. Together, humans and Threxans would endure, protect, and fight. The galaxy would come to know that those who stood with the Deathworld fleet could not be broken. And for the first time, the Threxans believed they could survive anything.